in to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Friday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a Fights and Football Friday, so hopefully you enjoy. This portion is the fight portion. It's been a couple weeks since we've done this, so just to catch up on WWE, catch up on AEW, catch up on the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and we will get a preview of the G1 as it is that time of year once again. So, thank you all so much for tuning in. Yes, I know it's a little bit lax, the attire today. It is already, I'm taping this at noon, and it's already 30 degrees here in Calgary. So, you get what you get. You get a little bit of shoulder on the end of the show today, and all that comes with that. So, let's get into it and talk some wrestling. So, the WWE has been ramping things up with the Solo Sikoa storyline. Admittedly, I think they could have done more with him in the last couple of months match-wise to build him up into feeling a little bit more unbeatable. Admittedly, I know I've said admittedly twice in the first minute and a half of this podcast, but he hasn't come off as strong as I thought he would as the leader of this group. I was saying this time last year even, I was saying this is the guy that you are looking to build out of this as a star. This is the guy that you are hoping comes out of this feeling like that dude. And they gave him the reins, pardon the pun, to start this kind of season off after WrestleMania. And it hasn't necessarily had that feel. His promo ability wasn't necessarily where I thought it would be. Something I think has clicked a little bit the last couple of weeks. I feel like he has kind of come into his own a little bit, and I feel like him as the new head of the table and really kind of gunning for it now, I do think that he has kind of found somewhat of a stride. And so I came away from this Friday on SmackDown feeling really, really strongly about this. Now, I don't think he's going to win or anything like that. And I think that's an interesting discussion for down the line, is what is the best way to end this part of Cody's story? Is it Solo at SummerSlam? I would be surprised, but I do think that it is... I think it's at least an interesting discussion, is what do you do with Cody? But I don't think now is the time with him losing to Solo Sikoa. I thought Cody cut a really good promo, coming out and feeling really serious. This was the first time that it felt like we got kind of serious Cody back getting into to SummerSlam. And so I think this is a good time now for the WWE to be building up to it. It feels like this story is kind of hitting that, I don't want to say crescendo, but it's getting toward a peak anyway, heading toward SummerSlam. And it does feel so obvious now that Roman's coming out at SummerSlam, right? Like it feels almost locked in that we'll get Roman and probably Jimmy Uso coming back out here at SummerSlam. So I think that would be, I'll be interested. Like I am interested at where this all goes, and very, very intrigued. I think they've done an awesome job with Jacob Fatu. I do wish, with it being the tag team champions, that he came out and attacked on Friday, I do wish that was the Guerrillas of Destiny. I wish they would have done that thing, but is what it is. I think Jacob Fatu, they have made him feel like an absolute superstar so far. The CM Punk Drew McIntyre situation has certainly got a lot of attention lately, and I didn't mind the whole Money in the Bank thing. And I know, like, the argument against what they did is pretty strong. With, like, you are looking to build up stars. What are you doing just wasting this thing? And I'm not going to say WWE has too many stars, but you are already building up Gunther. You're already building up Priest. You're already building up Solo. You're already building up Jacob Fatu. You don't need another project thrown on top of that. Also, the titles on both shows feel like they're going to be locked in for a little while. So a cash-in doesn't really seem like it could be in the cards, right? Like, you're not cashing in on... Maybe you could have done something where, like, Solo won and he cashes in, or Jacob Fatu, or whatever, you know? Like, you could have really gone that way, but that feels like it's a little bit too soon and almost kind of hot-shotting someone. And you're not, like, we're all presuming that Gunther is going to win the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam. You're not cashing in on him anytime soon. So, given that the titles are kind of occupied for the next little while, I don't think it would have made sense to just have someone have the briefcase just to have it. You just had a really long one with Damian Priest. So I didn't mind kind of using it almost as a prop to build into one of your biggest storylines. We saw this with the Bloodline when they have a storyline that is really clicking, and when they have kind of their A storyline for a show, and that is what Punk and McIntyre is. They will throw a lot of resources at it, whether it is like a main event spot in a pay-per-view dedicated not just to the match, but also all of the stuff after it. Or in this case, Money in the Bank, they have something that is this big thing, and it kind of engulfs a lot of other parts of it to build up and add a little bit more heat to it, brother, for all that. Although that's not a reference that's going to age all that well. But I don't mind it. I don't mind what they did with Punk interfering with McIntyre. I don't mind McIntyre winning it. Lord knows the man needed a win after the last little while. I'm interested at where Seth fits in all of this. I think a triple threat with Seth, Drew, and CM Punk feels a little bit like, really? Like, the Punk McIntyre solo feud, singles feud, sorry, not solo Sikoa. That felt more like what we were anticipating, what we were building towards. Seth being thrown in feels exactly like that. He is just being thrown in at this last possible juncture. But that storyline has been built. The other one that I've liked so far, Liv and Rhea, that has been so much fun. I know that this Liv Morgan character is a little bit more back toward the Attitude Era, but it's been a long time since they've done something like this, and I think it has allowed Liv to find this character in such a brilliant way. She has grown into this role week after week after week, and I think has been perfection in it. And we know, again, the character's motivations, where she wants to take everything from from Rhea Ripley. And I'm interested to see how this all kind of fractures off starting at SummerSlam, where I feel like they've done a pretty good job of forgetting that we had a few breadcrumbs with Finn Balor along the way, that Liv and Finn and probably JD are going to go that way, and maybe even Carlito going to go that way. Sorry, do Priest, Rhea, and Dom go that way? What happens with Dom in all of that? I'm curious to see how it all goes. So, but it's got to the point because of how well Liv has played this character. I'm not so sure Rhea should win on at SummerSlam. Rhea coming back as a giant babyface is this whole thing was the perfect way to build up the Rhea Ripley return as a babyface and kind of start her babyface era off in a really, really strong way. But Liv has taken to this character so well that it almost feels like a shame to beat her and just kind of get back to where we were a few months ago back at WrestleMania. So I'll be... That's one that I'm really, really interested in. And the Wyatt Six, it's been excellent so far. I love that we got the motivation for the characters very, very quickly, and I think they've built it up quite well. Let's shift gears now and talk some AEW. MJF and Ospreay put on an unbelievable show on Wednesday. And I get some of the flippy-dippy wahoo stuff is not for everyone. I've covered that in the past. This is definitely a match where if you're hating on it, you're trying too hard to hate on something. Because I think that this was just amazing. Now, I will say, I didn't love the MJF heel turn. I feel like that makes the back part of last year basically mean nothing. And that's really frustrating. Like, he is definitely an amazing heel. But to go through all of that, to turn him into this babyface, into our scumbag, to not have a real legitimate run as him with the, being a babyface, it just feels like you did all of that, and now we're just hitting the reset button here 6 months later with only a month of MJF and really nothing to quite frankly sink your teeth into from an MJF standpoint. So it just made it feel like the last almost year, when you look back on the build-up into All In, kind of meant nothing in the grand scheme of things, and that's a little bit frustrating. Now, I will obviously think differently about this later on, just because of how awesome he is as being the bad guy, and obviously his in-ring work has been phenomenal, and as a character, he is second to none in the world of professional wrestling right now. But I kind of wanted to see more, because it just kind of felt like, hey, all that stuff you just watched, that doesn't really matter anymore. Interested to see where all this goes at All In. I have loved Willow Nightingale's progression as of late. Her build into the Owen Hart Championship was really, really fun. And that feud with Mercedes Moné was great. Now I think what Mercedes is doing with Britt Baker is a whole lot of fun. So, and it's nice now to have kind of Mercedes and Statlander away from a championship and have AEW actually building something outside of just the two belts. So I think they've done a good job with that so far. But the big thing going on in pro wrestling right now is the G1. And the theme for this year is obviously the youth movement. As Gone Okada. There's no Ospreay in this. Naito is the champion, but there's no Tanahashi. Ishii is wrestling in North America for the next little while. Minoru Suzuki, he's over here as well. This is about the kids and building up their new pillars in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And so I would expect Shota Umino, Yota Tsuji, Yue Uemura, and Ren Narita will definitely be the focus of this tournament. And I would project one of them to win. Yota Tsuji feels like he is absolutely one who is primed for that. I think Shota Umino has all the makings of being that as well. If there wasn't more politics in the way, I think Takeshita certainly has an opportunity to be that type of a guy. And I think it would be honestly beneficial if AEW and New Japan kind of worked on something to let him build into that. But I think that the four guys will be the focus of it this year for sure. I'm interested to see how Naito does as champion. Again, a lot of the focus is going to be on the young guys, but he is the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion right now. So how does he fit into this picture, given that he's going to be wrestling a couple of those guys? And one of the last, I think, big stories for me coming into this G1 is what is going to be the focus on Gabe Kidd. How seriously will he be taken? It feels like they've done quite a bit with him on Strong. That doesn't always translate over to, for lack of a better term, the main roster in New Japan. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. In terms of a couple of other things that I've noted on this, I really want Shingo Takagi to be a focus. I think he has star written all over him. I think that he is someone, he got a bit of that with the IWGP win a couple of years ago, but it never really felt like they fully got behind it. It felt like that run ended pretty quickly, and so I feel like this could be another kind of reset for him. But I've thought that about different guys in the past, but he is the one for me this year that I am just like, I want this guy to be the guy in New Japan. I think he can be featured very prominently. Another interesting one is there's really no days off in this tournament. Like, there's literally days in between, but there isn't the comedy matches that we've seen before. There isn't some of the goofy wrestlers that we've had, or just the guys who you're absolutely going to steamroll this dude in 4 minutes, or, oh, this is going to be a disqualification, whatever. This is basically a tournament. Like, I don't anticipate Goto is going to do very well in this tournament. And there's a couple of guys who are like that, but there isn't really all right, you've just had 8 20-minute matches in a row. Here's an off night where you get to have a bit of a goofy comedy, we're putting you in a bear cage type of a match or something like that. So hopefully we'll see what it means for the show quality, but we'll see what it means for the wrestlers' help as well. But I think overall, one of the things that hasn't really been taken advantage of in the way that I thought it would be a relationship with New Japan, AEW, and to a certain extent CMLL. There's one AEW guy in here. There's no CMLL talent as far as I know in this tournament. And obviously, like, for this year, I get it, because the spotlight is supposed to be on those four cats, right? Like on Umino Tsuji, Uemura, and Ren Narita. So I understand you don't necessarily want a Mystico flipping and flying and all of these things, and you don't want a Bryan Danielson in maybe taking some of that spotlight away. But I do think that given the relationship with AEW, and again, to a certain degree CMLL, you have a wealth of talent at your disposal. And AEW kind of steamrolled New Japan, it felt like, with the whole Forbidden Door thing. And I'm not saying this would be retribution. Bring Moxley in and we'll beat him 9 times. I don't mean that. But when all of this kind of started, and when CM Punk joined AEW, and when Bryan Danielson joined AEW, even Adam Cole when he joined AEW, one of the things was, look, this is kind of exciting because there's a partnership with New Japan. Maybe we get a Bryan Danielson in a G1, or we get something along those lines. And we've had a couple of instances of it, but we haven't really, I feel like, fully taken advantage of what it could be with these guys in it. And now AEW has their own version of the G1 with the Continental Classic. I hope it means more than just a randomly thrown together championship at some point. But I feel like some of these companies now, because AEW, while they are heating up, has been in a bit of a lull. New Japan is obviously in a youth movement right now, so they don't feel like quite as hot of a product. And CMLL, just in general, has always had a bit of a perception that they are a bit behind AAA, and they are maybe not like as mainstream whatever. And I think like Lucha Underground had quite a bit to do with that. And this is just my maybe I could be wrong on that perception. But I do think that you have three brands that could maybe use a bit of a boost, and I feel like they don't quite work together in the ways that they need to. If they did, I think you could get something really, really special going on here. All right, that is the story from the world of professional wrestling. Let's move into the fight game and talk some UFC. All right, so last time we talked UFC on here was just before UFC 303, so I just wanted publicly stated that Alex Pereira is a beast. And look, I get he hasn't cleared out his division yet, but we were talking after UFC 300. You have to give this guy a heavyweight something. It doesn't have to be Aspinall. It doesn't have to be John Jones. It doesn't have to be Stipe Miocic. Just give him a large human being to punch and kick. That is all I ask. This is a guy who is daring to be great right now, to steal a Brian Campbellism from Morning Combat. This is a guy who I think is really looking to do something special and has quite frankly already done something special in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. This is I think a unique opportunity to really make someone feel special, and there aren't a whole lot of special feeling guys in the UFC right now, which is why he had to step in this fight in the first place. So I think you absolutely need to build this man up, and make him feel like a mythical creature almost. make him feel like the guy Yuri Prochazka felt like he was fighting a couple of Saturdays ago at UFC 303 at International Fight Week. In terms of other things that have happened, Rose Namajunas, she's just not going away. And it kind of felt like maybe we had seen her time come, but it has been a nice reminder of how talented a fighter Rose Namajunas is. She gets back-to-back wins. She is so talented, and I think she is still a major threat in whatever division she chooses to fight in. She is so well-rounded. She is so smart. She is so aggressive when she needs to. She has an unbelievable sense, I think, of what is happening in the octagon, and is someone who I think can really take advantage of that. So coming off of that fight over the weekend, I feel like she has kind of worked her way back into Rose Namajunas is a problem territory. All right, that's going to do it for Fightin' Friday here today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Football Friday is going to be available wherever you consume this bit of content. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Remember to subscribe wherever you're consuming this. Like it if you're watching. Review it if you're listening. Follow me on social media at Primetime Klein or twitch.tv/PrimetimePK. And I'll, talk to y'all in a little bit. I'm out. Have a great day, everybody.